Coming up, APTN National News in Canada has a new host. We're visiting with Darrell Stranger. And we're breaking down last week's White House Tribal Nation Summit. I am Aaliyah Chavez. Join us for those interviews plus headlines from the ICT Newscast.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.
The Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication at Arizona State University is honored to be a supporter of Indian Country Today. Working with award-winning professors, Cronkite students learn news reporting, social media, shooting and editing videos, and producing content for communications industries. Cronkite's 15 professional programs give students the opportunity to cover critical issues throughout the U.S. and beyond. Learn more at cronkite.asu.edu.
This is the ICT Newscast with Aaliyah Chavez.
Amadawa Hopa, thank you for joining us. We start in Washington, D.C., where an Indigenous woman has been appointed by President Joe Biden to a leadership role in the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Navajo Nation citizen Ginger Sykes-Torres will now serve as the USDA State Executive Director for the Farm Service Agency of Arizona. The Stanford University alum most recently ran as a Democrat for a seat in the U.S. Congress. Sykes-Torres has worked as a consultant on environmental impact assessment and policy for federal agencies. She took to social media to say she is humbled and excited to serve in this new role. Up next, her office is expected to announce grants and loans to help create jobs and support economic development in the state. In Fort Hall, Idaho, an Indigenous college student is working to empower the Shoshone-Bannock community. The student, a citizen of the Navajo Nation, set up a self-defense class aimed at giving Native people the tools to fight off would-be attackers. Rosalind Yazzie has the story.
Statistically, 1/3 of Native women are sexually assaulted in their lifetime, and murder is the third leading cause of death among them. In an effort to protect themselves, a group of people are learning to fight back with the help of a free self-defense class. Navajo Nation citizen and law student Marissa Harrison says she was motivated to help the missing and murdered Indigenous people crisis.
I am preparing for law school, and I am wanting to pursue tribal law, and I've also worked on the Fort Hall Reservation before with Sister and Eddie with the kids, and I have this draw and this passion to help the Native American community, especially with things like MMIP and just the statistics with that and how just high it is, the rates and everything.
The self-defense class was instructed by Isaac and Amanda Payne, founders of Pack Jiu-Jitsu. Isaac says they are happy to help out, and we're excited to show them some skills that will hopefully keep them safe. Shoshone-Bannock citizen and Carrying the Message coordinator, Helena George, has been organizing MMIP walks for the last 2 years. George says with respect to missing Shoban citizens, this night was very important.
It was very important because of the missing and murdered. We wanted to train, some women if they came out and to get awareness. And because we hear a lot around the community that there's people out there that target women, and we wanted to show the reservation that there is, a way to combat that.
The organizers say they really like the turnout and are working to get participants some self-defense kits. In Fort Hall, Idaho, Rosalind Yazzie, ICT News.
Tribal leaders in New York are speaking out after the state made a big decision on Native mascots in schools. In November, the state's education department released a memo saying any school that continues to use Native mascots could face penalties if they don't change their name or logo. Seneca Nation President Ricky Armstrong characterized the decision as a positive step in the right direction. He added that Native names and imagery continue to, quote, mock, degrade, and devalue Native people in society. The leader of the Oneida Indian Nation, Ray Hellbritter, agreed. Hellbritter said the actions by the state's education board aim to make children of all ethnicities feel comfortable. He added that promoting inclusivity is the best way to unite communities going forward. Well, the New York Times list is out with its best shows of 2022. At the top of this year's list is Hulu's Reservation Dogs. The show is created by Indigenous people, from the actors to the writers. It follows 4 young Indigenous teenagers who aim to make it to California to live their dreams. The journalists from the Times described it as, quote, by far the best thing on TV in 2022. They added that the series became weirder, funnier, and more heartbreaking. Co-creator Sterling Harjo took to social media to congratulate his team following the achievement. The multi-award-winning show is in its 2nd season and has already been renewed for a 3rd. And those are the headlines for the ICT Newscast. If you are a frequent viewer of the ICT Newscast, you probably watch and hear the stellar reporting from our friends in Canada by the news organization at APTN. We're joined now by Darrell Stranger, who was recently named the permanent host of APTN National News and APTN InFocus. This, of course, means viewers in Canada can catch him live on weeknights and online with all the latest information about First Nations communities. Hi there, Darrell.
Aaliyah, hi. Thanks so much for inviting me on your show.
It's wonderful to see you, and congratulations on your recent promotion. For our viewers who are learning about this for the first time, tell them what it means.
So it means you're going to be seeing a lot more of me on TV and online, like you were saying. I'll be doing our national news show three times a week, and I have a 1-hour live show, like you mentioned, APTN InFocus, on Wednesdays at 2 p.m. Central, and that airs on all of our social media and our channel as well. It's pretty exciting for me personally, and I just hope I can continue to bring my reporting skills into the anchor position.
Yeah, give us a quick refresher on what APTN is and how it was founded.
Yeah, so APTN was founded as a network in 1999, but I mean, it dates back even before that, and the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And it was based on just a really simple mission of programming by, for, and about Indigenous people. And that message carries through even to today with our national news programs and every other show that we have on our network. And that's something that really rings true with all of us that work here, and especially with our newscast. Our newscast started as Envision News in 2000, which is a precursor to APTN National News. But again, by, for, and about Indigenous people is what we're all about here.
That's amazing. We love that mission here at ICT. I want to learn a little bit more about your path to becoming a journalist. Is this something that you always wanted to do?
No. So funny enough, I was probably the farthest person from the camera. I hated cameras, and I hated just being on camera. But I sort of just fell into it, I guess. I was looking to get into radio, funny enough, and then I did radio and realized I don't really like that. And the school I went to had television, and I tried that out, and I was like, oh, this is kind of cool, and maybe I could do a bit more. And luckily enough, with a lot of luck, actually, I got a couple of positions here and there, and I found myself here at APTN, and I've just sort of worked my way up to where I am now.
Darrell, people ask me that question all the time. Did you always know that you wanted to be a journalist? And growing up, I really never saw a lot of journalists who were Native American on the television station that I watched as a child. And so I really never felt like that was even possible for me. So I can relate to that a lot. And it's really interesting to see, now being in this position, that there's a whole group of people who hopefully won't feel that way.
No, exactly. Yeah. And I had never heard of, ICT or APTN growing up. And then once I started getting older and getting into the journalism, I was like, wow, there's so many journalists, Indigenous journalists, that are doing such great work. And as soon as I got into APTN, it sort of opened my eyes to stuff that, even though, being Indigenous, I was like, wow, I had no idea some of these issues are as big as they are. And it's due to the incredible work of our team here and your team at ICT as well, that is bringing these stories to light and educating even myself every day. So it's incredible work.
Darrell, you've covered a number of topics since you've been at APTN. Maybe tell us about some of the stories that you're most proud of.
Yeah, for me, I'm a big a sports person, so I'm always going to lean a little towards the sports side of things. They played an incredible role in my life growing up, as many Indigenous people do. And then the work that I think I'm the most proud of, though, is the stuff that, MMIWG2S, shedding light on those, the unmarked graves, when that sort of happened. It's stories like that that really sort of ground you and remind you of why we do what we do, and educating the general public and even ourselves on just how important these issues truly are.
You mentioned unmarked graves. That's something that we've also covered here. As we gear up for 2023, is that a story that you expect we can hear more about in the next year, or what kinds of stories do you expect we could hear about?
Yeah, that's definitely one. That's something we're always going to be following. There's so many different nations and reservations that are finding more and looking into more. We actually just had a special interlocutor named this past year, and there's progress reports being updated on that. So that's one. MMIWG2S, excuse me. That's one that we're always going to be following. So those two are probably the big ones that we're going to be following and constantly updating, because that's something that is not going away anytime soon.
Just give our viewers a quick update on how many reporters you have really stationed around the country there to be able to tell those stories.
Yeah, so it's actually quite a small team, but we do such incredible work. We have sort of west, north, and east, so one in almost every province here. So our team is comprised of, I'd say, about 15 to 20 journalists or so. But again, the work that they do is absolutely incredible and so crucial to who we are as a network and what we do as a network. So kudos to everybody out there that's reporting on all those stories.
Darrell, we're getting close to the end of our time here, but I do have a question. If you were speaking to an Indigenous child who wanted to be a journalist or thought that this was something that, could interest them, what advice would you have for them?
Reach out. I think it's a big thing. I mean, we're friendly people, right? Journalists, we like to share our knowledge, and so if you're interested, just reach out to somebody you know, or an organization. Reach out and be like, hey, maybe I'm interested in this. Can I maybe, shadow you a bit? Then I think that's the biggest thing with me is I was able to sort of hop in and learn without having too much pressure. So I think that's the biggest thing, is reach out. And then also, once you get started, just enjoy the process as well, and really soak up as much as you can, because the work that journalists do is so crucial and so important. So those would be my little 2 bits.
Well, Darrell Stranger, the new host of APTN National News and APTN InFocus, thank you so much.
Thank you, Miigwech Alia.
The NBA's Phoenix Suns City Edition jersey honored the 22 tribes of Arizona during last month's Native American Heritage Month. ICT's Talahongva and Max Montour were at the NBA game to ask fans what they thought.
I think it's beautiful. It represents the Southwest.
Do you know anything else about the uniform and what it represents?
Yeah, it's for the tribes.
What do you think this means to the Native children?
I think that it means they're included in the NBA and that they can probably make it to the NBA too if they want to.
I like the idea of kind of connecting with the heritage, the local heritage.
And before this jersey, did you know there were 22 tribes in Arizona?
You know what? I did not know exactly how many tribes there were, so this is educating me.
Fans say they like the color and they liked learning about the 22 tribes in Arizona.
Because it's representing culture and history, so I think that's pretty cool that they were able to do that. The first day I saw it, I bought it.
Troy Lamavaya is Hopi, and he drove more than 4 hours just to be at the game when the players wore the jersey for the first time.
So what does this jersey mean to you?
It means everything. 22 feathers around everything on the shorts. I think it's great. It's awesome.
I come from Singapore, and this is my first time to go to the Phoenix.
In the team shop, fans saw a map of Arizona on the wall showing each tribe's location.
You know, going into my 18th year with the Phoenix Suns, it is amazing to see the diversity and the inclusion that we're having with this jersey and what it means to this state and just many of the tribes that are here in Arizona. It's awesome.
I love the design. My favorite thing is the Suns words down the side in the 22 different languages.
At halftime, each tribal leader was recognized.
From the Cocopa Indian tribe, Chairwoman Sherry Cordova.
And afterwards, Suns president Jason Rowley surprised the leaders with a gift of $10,000 for each tribe's youth programs.
It's really great that they're doing this, and we have some youth that are really going to benefit from this, and so we're really happy to hear that. We're just happy for this night that they're recognizing the tribe, so it's a really special night for all of us.
On behalf of the Phoenix Suns and Suns fans around the world, we thank the 22 tribal nations of Arizona.
What are you telling the viewers about this unique jersey the Suns are wearing tonight?
Well, just obviously the meaning of it and supporting and showing love. It's just a great cause and a great night for the Phoenix Suns and the tribe in general.
While American viewers are learning about the new Suns jerseys through the ESPN coverage, viewers in China are also learning about the 22 tribes in Arizona through ESPN China.
It's just like China. China has 56 ethnicities and cultures. We're people of deep diversity, cultural diversity, and here in the states of United States, Arizona, most people in China probably do not understand or have a deep understanding of what the state is like, especially culturally.
Wang gave us an example of how they will describe the jersey.
在这款太阳队的球衣，这个两边有很多有22种。I was briefly translate what I said. I said there's a lot of there are a lot of thoughtfulness behind the designs of those 22 different languages. They're designed to present the same unified purpose, which is to the name of Phoenix Suns.
Representation matters. It really does.
After the game, both players and coach agreed. The jersey is all about representation.
Devin, you debuted the uniform tonight, the city uniform that honors the Native Americans in Arizona. Can you talk about what it was like to play in those uniforms tonight?
I mean, it was unbelievable. Not only play in it, but have the chance to meet with all of them down here at the court, and not only the jerseys, we have a whole entire court. So, getting the backstory, allows us to wear it with great pride and great honor. And I'm glad we got the win in the first time wearing them.
What was it like to look in the stands and see the turquoise jerseys?
It's fire. I love the color. Protection.
Coach, can you talk about the uniform? The debut of the uniform?
Sure. There's so much meaning behind it. We have an understanding that our fans and our fan base extends outside of these city lines. And for us to be able to recognize that and recognize the contributions of Native Americans in this city and throughout the state is a huge deal. And when I study the Trail of Tears and the Indian Wars, I'm blown away at the resiliency of your people. And it's great for us to be able to recognize the contributions of Native Americans in this state and throughout the country, but also I think we need to recognize the resiliency and the grace that you all have shown our nation, because there's a lot of wrongs that have been done to the Native American people in this country. And I don't see a lot of ill will or hate or bad motives. And I don't think that's said enough. And sometimes when you're an African American, we tend to only look at racism and inequality from my perspective as an African American. And I don't think we take enough time to look at it from the Native American perspective. So for us to be able to have the jerseys on tonight, I hope we do it more than tonight, but it says a lot about you all, your strength, your resiliency, and your ability to show a ton of grace to a nation that was really, really tough on you all.
Well, for me, it was lit. I love these jerseys. They're awesome. When we opened them, it was tough. Like seeing the jerseys, like blue jerseys, like that's different. And then they showed us the court. Like I was like, man, that's really cool.
I was excited too. I think it's kind of dope learning like the history of it.
I think it'll bring the Suns lots of luck.
感谢大家的收看，下场见 which means thank you for watching us. We'll see you next game.
In Phoenix, Patty Talahongva with Max Montour, ICT News.
Tribal leaders around the country are fresh off of the White House Tribal Nations Summit that happened last week in Washington, D.C. ICT's Pauly Denetclaw was there, and she joins us now to break it all down. Hi, Pauly.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me, Aaliyah.
Pauly, I want to break everything down from this summit. I mean, there's so much to talk about, but, you were there, of course. Maybe describe what the atmosphere was like.
So the atmosphere of the summit was very much really focusing on, what the White House has done, what this administration has done, what the Interior has done over the last year, what the White House Tribal Nations Summit is able to do is really serve as a sort of like deadline, right? So the Interior, the White House, they all have to have something to say when the White House Tribal Nations Summit comes around. And so that really was sort of the messaging. And one of the things that the White House really highlighted was the $45 billion that has gone to tribal nations over the last 2 years and the amount of funding that has gone to tribes.
Pauly, something that really stood out to me was the collective political power of all of these tribal nations being at the Interior Department. A moment that I'm specifically thinking about is when the president was speaking and he said, I have all of these promises to Indian country and I know that I have to deliver. Otherwise, tribal nations will let me know that I'm not living up to those promises. Do you remember that moment?
Yes, I do remember that moment. I was really lucky to be able to be in the room when President Joe Biden was there and speaking. And, it was just really amazing to, see that the president was there. He was not on the schedule that we all got at the White House Tribal Nations Summit. We did hear that vice president would be there and would be giving a speech. But then when everybody heard that the president of the United States was coming to give a speech at the summit, it was incredible. And so just really highlighting these little key moments. I think one of the moments that I didn't actually get to capture in my article that I wrote was at one point there was a tribal leader that was sort of standing behind me, and he was like, President Biden, at the end of his speech, and like waved at him, and Biden stopped, turned to look at him, like looked him directly in his eyes and like waved at him. And I thought that was such an amazing moment. And I know that a lot of the tribal leaders really appreciated being able to hear from President Biden.
Pauly, I think that's a great detail. The other detail that I was talking with you about actually was the fact that you're saying tribal leaders were taking calls in the hallway because they have to continue running tribal governments.
Yes. So there were, of course, there were over 300 tribal leaders at the White House Summit. And They were in the hallways taking phone calls. I know of some, and then also leadership, Indigenous people who work either in the interior or who work at other departments in the federal government. They were all taking meetings or they were on Zoom calls and, trying to participate in this summit while still also running their tribal nations. And I think one of the things that I said was like tribal governments don't run themselves. And that was really evident in that moment, to just see all of these really important people all in this one room and still, their focus, their goals, their leadership was focused on their communities back home, even though they were in this space. And so I thought that was really amazing.
Well, Pauly, the viewers, of course, can read more about your reporting on our website, but thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
And that's a slice of our Indigenous world. For all the latest, visit ICTnews.org. From all of us in the newsroom, stay safe, my relatives.
Sometimes you got to take a stand, just because you know you can. Oh, you got to run, you got to run.
The Sand Creek Massacre, the betrayal that changed Cheyenne and Arapaho people forever, focuses on tribal accounts of Colorado's deadliest day. Exhibition details at historycoloradocenter.org.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.